What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the UnLearnT podcast. This is the second act, the place where we reflect on where we've been so we can redefine our now to rewrite our next. This is your girl, Jaquita, and I am joined today by my brother, my friend, my PhD comrade. Y'all, he has a story for you guys today. He is an amazing scholar. He's a mentor to many. He is a father. He is a husband. He is a son, and he is just an all-around outstanding person to know. And I am excited, and a motivational speaker in his own right. Okay, let me put it out there. And he's going to tell you about a lot of the other amazing things he does. I would like to introduce you guys to my brother, Richard Yeargin III.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Jara, you already know. Oh, man, God is good.
They're about to get some vibes today, bro. Okay.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
about to get some
yeah,
vibes. Listen, you guys,
yeah.
when I was thinking about this podcast or this segment of the UnLearnT podcast, the second act, I really wanted to bring people on who have stories that really capture hidden struggles, things that people may not see or know, but that give stories of triumph and victory, and that can really help people through times of uncertainty and times where they feel like, man, I really thought that the first act of my life was setting me up one way, but then I got to the intermission, right? I got something happen that threw me off course, and I need to figure out how to redirect myself back to what God always intended for my life. And you guys, Rich has almost, if I could have written the story by myself for what an amazing second act looked like, I would have absolutely adopted his narrative, because what God has done in his life is nothing more than tremendous. And you see what's behind my brother. Okay, he already set the stage. We got Jira in the back. Okay, God our provider. Okay, and Rich, I'm so excited for people to hear more about who you are and what God has done in your life.
I mean, following that act and that introduction, I don't know how I'm going to live up to the expectations that you've placed on my life. But I tell you this, with his help and putting me behind the cross, and may I decrease so that he can increase, I tell you this, and I appreciate everything. I appreciate you inviting me into this space. I appreciate your heart. I appreciate the relationship that we've cultivated behind the scenes over the past 3 years as brother and sister in Christ, as colleagues, in so many different capacities. We have exercised the liberty in Christ to be who he's called us to be together, right? Over the past 3 years. And so I just want to say to you, this space that you've created, I bless it in Jesus' name, and that it'll continue to grow. Because I'm humbled and honored that you invited me into this space. So thank you, first and foremost.
I appreciate that, bro. I appreciate that, bro. I want you to help us set the scene, right? When we think about when we go to a play, or even when we might watch a movie, right? It's literally broken up into these different acts, right? And you have the first act where you're introduced to a character. You learn a little bit about their story. You learn about some of their pitfalls, some of their strengths, some of their weaknesses, but you really start to build a hope around who that character is going to become. Can you tell me a little bit about the beginning of your story, and feel free to start it anywhere that you like, about what was your first act? What was the story being written that kind of started to build the character that we were learning in the beginning of your narrative?
Yeah, I mean, so October 14th, 1996, I was born to Janice and Richard.
Baby, y'all.
Yeah, I was born to Richard and Janice Yeargin in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And my father being Richard Yeargin Sr., and, having had my older brother, him and I are 11 and a half years apart, that was a whole narrative within itself. Like, my dad's name's Richard, my older brother's name's Richard, and now I'm the third, incarnation of Richard, right? Wow. Within the same household, but a whole different generation, right? Because my brother and I being 11 and a half years apart, my parents being 40 years of age when they had me, right?
Wow.
That was a challenge within itself, right? And so my entire life has been on accelerated mode. So I started
Wow.
school actually a year earlier than most, and I was put in like a really gifted like learner type situation early on in my
Mm-hmm.
life that
Wow.
helped speed up my development and my growth, because where I went to school they taught a grade or two ahead, and they gave you
Oh,
more than you can handle, and it
yeah.
was a very strict curriculum, and I spent a lot of time with my grandmother, my father's mother,
Mm-hmm.
Margaret
Yeah.
Jurgen. And, my grandmother, she, just like any praying grandma, she knew how to get through to the Lord.
Yeah.
And I think early on in my life, what helped set the stage was losing her at such a young, pivotal age for me in the third grade shifted the whole narrative for me, because that safety net of what I'm describing to you that I grew up in was altered. It was disrupted, right? With the
Yeah.
death of my grandmother, or the sudden death thereof of my grandmother. I had spent from 96 all the way to the third grade almost every other day. When I get out of school, my routine was I go to grandma's house. I'm in the kitchen with grandma.
Yeah.
My uncle lived in the back. My grandfather had passed when I was 2 years old. So I got an old school grandma. She's from Simpsonville, South Carolina, right here.
Your
She old
grandma
school.
from Simpson?
Yeah. So
You know
she
you
old
had
school.
roots here.
Yeah. Yeah. They
Yeah.
migrated down in like the 60s when work was good, because my grandfather, he's a tradesman with his hands by nature. He's a
Yeah.
craft. So they moved down there and shifted our family down there for more opportunity. And so I was kind of like my grandmother's little guy. You know what I mean? Like out of all
Yeah.
of her grandkids, and I mean, I got a lot of cousins, a lot of, my grandmother birthed 4 boys, and my father is the
Mm.
youngest. And so she got a lot of grandkids. And so I was sort of like her baby, the one that she really, her arm baby. Like everybody else get a certain amount of food, but my food put off to the side.
Now you was that cousin. You was that cousin. Your plate already in the refrigerator. See,
Yeah,
you the one I don't like.
I'm
I'd have
good.
stole
I'm
your
good.
plate. I'm gonna
I'm
tell you
good.
that right
I'm
now.
good. I'm good. I got the remote to all the TVs. I got the universal
Oh
remote.
no.
I got
Oh
access to
no.
the one that play all the channels. Like,
Oh
so
no.
I
Oh
she's
no.
giving me all the access to the refrigerator. Everybody else got to ask for permission. I always
But
had
you
access.
just roll in.
First taste. I'm always tasting the banana pudding off top.
That's
Like off top. As
oh
soon as
no
I
no
get home
no no no.
from school. As soon as I get home from school.
See, nah,
as soon
you
as
the
I
banana
get-
pudding grandchild. I know nobody likes you now. Cause ain't no way. I really want to hone in, Rich, on this
Yeah.
idea of living legacy, right?
Mhm.
Because you have your father Richard, you have your older brother Richard, and you have you the third, right? And a lot of times when you have like a senior, a junior, and a third, when you talk about those being different generations, they are literally like grandfather, father, son, but kind of all being kind of in not in the same space because you grew up with your grandmother. How did that impact your understanding of who you were meant to be? Like, did you see the other Richards and say, I'm supposed to be
Yeah.
like them? Or were you
Yeah.
trying to find your own identity?
Well, I always knew I wanted to be a businessman, and I always knew I wanted to be somewhat of a hustler. I knew the game, right? At a very young age, you got a job, but you got another job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whatever that may look like. I don't
Yeah.
know what
You
that might
got
look
this,
like.
but you got this on the
Look at
side.
that. Right, right, right.
Yeah.
You,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? And so I always seen my dad go to work, right? My father worked for the county in housing and finance, HBCU graduated from South Carolina State. Secretly, don't tell nobody, he was the mascot. And it's right. And so my life has been like predestined, right? Like my dad
Yeah.
played football, played sports growing up, but he didn't have that support system like I had in terms of the
Yeah.
early age development. My grandfather, I told you, he work on roofs and with his hands. He ain't got time. Like he old school. He ain't got time to back in them days be talking about taking him to football practice and that man is out there working and fighting for his life every day. So my
Yeah.
dad was fighting for his life. Like he was a first generation college student. You know what I'm
Ooh.
saying? So he's trying to
Yeah.
figure it out. So now I know it's incumbent upon me to go to college, right?
Yeah.
Like my brother goes to South Carolina State, pledges Q, plays football for Buddy Pugh. I mean, he's living the life. He marries a Delta. He's living his greatest life. You know what I'm saying? So I grew up seeing, right, and being a young boy, like, oh, I know I'm going to South Carolina State, like, wherever I'm going somewhere. I don't know. I'm just for whatever, right? At that point in time,
But that's
and
so interesting though that like
yeah, yeah,
that all of y'all were like
yeah.
football players, right?
hmm hmm
When did football enter into your life? Or was it
So
just kind of always there?
it was always kind of there naturally because my older brother, like I said, set the stage for that for me, right? Because I would grow up going to his high school games. I would grow up traveling to his college games. Check this out, by train. Because you got to think, I'm growing up in Fort Lauderdale,
Yeah, and
right?
he's in SC State.
He's at South Carolina State. We're 11 and a half
Wow.
years apart. I'm maybe like second, third grade. He's in college, right? My dad's raising and my mom, right? But they also got to take care of him, even though he's, so my mom wasn't able to always make a lot of what was going on in terms of like games because my mom does hair by nature. So, if you're a
Yeah.
hairstylist, you on
Oh, you got
call.
to be available Friday
You
night.
available
What?
at
Saturday
Friday
night?
night.
Nah.
Just got paid. I mean,
Listen.
they need them perms. Let's call it
Yeah.
what it is. You know what I'm saying? And so my mom, the hustler, right? Like the second act,
Yeah.
my mom sell clothes. She, got her own boutique, got her own this, that, Mary Kay, So my mind,
Yeah.
my dad's the businessman, loan officer,
Yeah.
did houses. My mom, she getting it, boom, boom, boom. So that's the operation, right?
So
That I'm seeing,
that's the environment you're growing up in. It's
right?
everybody's getting to it.
Everybody's getting to it. Nobody's sitting
Yeah.
around with idle hands. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody's
Yeah.
moving. Everybody's got something to do. And so my dad and I would travel up to see my brother at least like 2 or 3 times a year. I
Yeah.
didn't make every game because I was playing little league football now at this time, right? So now
Wow.
I'm being introduced, but my brother is light years ahead of me. He's in college, but on his journey on the back end of it, I'm on the very front end of mine. You see what I'm saying? So I'm growing
Yeah.
up going and seeing like, oh, I know I'm gonna play in college. My brother playing in college, right? Seeing the fullness of the process at a
Yeah.
young starting
Ooh.
age. And so I'm hungry because I got to get on a train, right? Like we ain't got it like that to get on no plane. Sometimes that life
Things
in the
happen.
second act,
Yeah.
So for me, I understand, I see it, I know how all this works at a very young age. Father's battling
Yeah.
cancer. Like I said, we just lost my grandmother, his mom. He was dealing with losing
Wow.
properties. It's '08, the recession's about to hit. So it's a lot of things that are happening around us while
Yeah.
we're trying to move forward that birthed the football player. If that
Oh.
kid that was an innocent, like church going kid that, grandma like raised him up in the church, don't go outside past the porch because them little thugs be down there on the corner,
No.
and
You
I don't need
stay
you
in the
going down
yard.
there.
Yeah.
You stay in the yard and you look from a
Yeah.
distance
Yeah.
at them over there.
No, a lot of
Yeah,
us had that stay in the yard rule.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Don't
yeah.
go too far. Don't go too far now. No,
Stay where I can see you.
water that grass right there. Don't move past
Listen, that part.
right there. Don't go down there in apartments. The
I
apartments on the other side.
what you said.
Don't go over there
What you
because
said.
it was a place literally 2 blocks from my grandmother called the government apartments. That's what it is. I mean, they hang their
Listen.
clothes on the
There's just
clothesline
sometimes
outside, and
you know by the
they
name.
pool is the community pool, and how the rest of that go. And
Stay
so
in the yard.
my grandmother was like, "Look, you're a porch kid. You know what I'm saying? I don't want you out there. But when grandma gone and you off the porch and you playing football now with your homeboys and everybody you
Oh, and
grew
now
up
you
with,
cool. Yeah.
it's a whole different vibe. Now Yerg is on the scene. Little Yerg.
Lil Jurgen's hilarious. But I
Little
think
Yerg.
it's so funny to me. One, I loved what you said when you talked about how you were going to see your brother, and it was like
Mm-hmm.
little Richard looking at
Mm-hmm.
older Richard and seeing
Mm-hmm.
yourself in the
Mm-hmm.
future. And so even though, you know, you were Little Richard at the time playing Little League football and you were a porch kid, right? You
Mhm.
had a
Mhm.
vision of my older
Mhm.
brother, you know, football player in a fraternity at a HBCU. He's that guy,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
and so like you're building this vision of who you're going to become.
Mhm.
And I, when I look back on my own life, right, I didn't necessarily have kind of the vision or kind of that example, you know. Unfortunately, I am not a Jaquita the third. There was no Jaquita Jr. or no Jaquita Senior. Uh, but you know, and I was, you know, really first generation, so I didn't really know what I was building to. But like you, I had the safeguards around me to
Mhm.
say, you don't do what the other kids do because there's a vision ahead of you. And maybe
Mhm.
what your grandma saw was what was ahead of you. We got to protect you here so that we can protect what's ahead of you.
Mhm.
And I love that you say that, you know, that you were a porch kid
Mhm.
until
So
Yerd
grandma,
came on the scene,
so Yuri
you
came on the
know.
scene.
Because
I started
you
looking
know,
around and saying, "Oh, they hotboxing and jacking cars over there. Oh,
Lord,
they stealing. Oh, you in it now. You in
you
the
wasn't supposed to
world.
go off the porch,
You weren't
Rich.
supposed to see
You
all that, man."
you weren't supposed to go off that porch. Now we told you. We told you not to go off that porch. But it's how many times, you know, even of course as young people, we gonna test the boundaries. Right. We gonna go off the porch. We want to see what's happening at the apartments. We want to see what's over there. But the thing is that even in some of our adult years, right, there are things that God has placed safeguards around us to protect the identity that we're growing into, to the vision that He's taking us to the dream, to the second act. You know, your grandma was literally protecting your second act while you were in the first act. She was preparing you, saying, hey, listen, you can't go because where you're going, I got to protect you here on this side of it so that you'll have what you need when you're going. But we all like to go off that porch, man. We all like to go and see what everybody else is doing when a path for you to be different, for you to be set apart had already been laid. But I ain't judging you, my brother, okay? Because listen, we all got off that path a time or two. So talk to me about how your identity, because football player in a college football player specifically was kind of the vision that was set before you as a young child, and where you saw yourself kind of building to, right, to college, to football, to I know I have to get there. Talk to me about high school, right? Because I'm sensing that might be that might be when the
Shift,
porch, when we got up off the porch, right? So
man.
so and high school is also, I was not a student athlete, although I kind of was because I was in the band. And I don't care what y'all say, marching band was a sport. We've already had this argument on the podcast before, right?
Mhm.
But I imagine as an athlete that becomes such a part of your identity, right?
Mhm.
How did you kind of navigate that during those years where you were deciding who you were going to be as a young man?
I appreciate that question. It started with church. Started as a junior deacon. Getting on that right path after middle school had some rocky moments and sometimes, where I was really trying to figure it out. Like it was either going to be or not be with life.
Yeah.
And God led me to greener pastures. And what I mean by that is a kid being from the inner city of Fort Lauderdale and being sent across the the railroad tracks is a big deal. So I was accepted into a private school environment where my parents did not have to pay much of pretty much anything.
Poor
Tuition there is ridiculous.
guardrails. Yeah.
Tuition there is about maybe 12 to 18,000 a year, just to be like completely like blunt and transparent. I
Yeah.
had to take an entrance exam because my middle school years were not good as far as attendance, behavior, and coursework, right? The ABCs did not match, right? The entrance exam scores that I presented when I went to take the entrance exam to get into this school. And so my dad knew, he's like, in order for you to really make it, you got to leave being around what's familiar to you, right?
Wow.
So I think the hardest thing was when my parents dropped me off into an environment where, for the very first time, and I say this candidly, I was around people that didn't look like me for the first time.
Yeah.
And so that energy that I lead with, talking greasy and talking like from the street or talking raw, like that language, to hear a young Caucasian man, um, that grandfather, excuse me, owns a golf course on that side of town, right?
Wow.
Near the
Yeah.
beach,
Yeah.
say to me, I don't understand anything you're saying to me. Slow
Wow.
down when you speak. That was what changed life for me. And I had to
Wow.
learn how to decompartmentalize. Everybody don't come from that. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes
Yeah.
slow down and like deal with people where they are. Cause I'm coming
Yeah.
to an environment that's not necessarily built for me, but God's already gone ahead, made the provision to be here, right? He's cleaned my record for me to dwell amongst people that are of the
Wow.
affluent. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
I'm going to school with the mayor's son, the judge's son, these
Wow.
influential people in Fort Lauderdale. Now, Fort Lauderdale, again, a lot happened
Yeah.
over the course of time in Fort Lauderdale. And one of the things that happened was the inner city is where all the talent comes from. If we
Talk
want to be
about
very blunt, I'm just
talk
telling you
talk
that the
about
talent
it.
did not come from the suburbs. It came from the
Yeah.
inner city. So they
Yeah.
called, we answered, and we came running because I said, there's opportunity. I'm going to meet
Yeah.
opportunity with passion, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to give these people everything I got because, first of all, my parents, they worked their entire lives, like I said, starting me off at the program when I was really young with strict curriculum where I knew competitively I can compete with them in the classroom. Like
Yeah.
I was, I was playing down to my level of the competition around me once I realized like they're not that much smarter than me.
Yeah.
And I became a 4.5 student. I became an AP honor roll student. I'm just talking about the student right now,
Yeah.
right? And that was through seeking out help, right? So I learned one of the biggest things I had to do was admit I don't know everything, right? And I
Yeah.
need ask for help. I mean, you got world-class teachers teaching you every day with crazy background. I mean, you got some of the best faculty, some of the best exposure. So the environment in and itself, right, like started to challenge me to think like I'm joining student government in ninth grade, running for class
Wow.
president in an environment where it wasn't too many people that would try something like that. They was looking around like, hey, what's going on? And I was here. I was like, hey, I'll sign up. I'll run against you. And and right there, it was like, whoa. I realized, I said, you know what? It's going to be easy to take over on the field if I could take over in the classroom.
Whoa. Let me tell you something because I think I've been watching. I like to watch athletic shows. I was not an athlete except for marching band, which is a sport. But
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't an athlete. But for some reason, I love watching shows about
Mm-hmm.
athletes. And so
Yeah.
recently, I just watched this show on Apple TV called Swagger. Have you seen Swagger?
Mm-mm.
Oh, it's so good. It's so
Mm-hmm.
good. Go
Yeah.
check it out. But it's a young basketball player who's getting it from the inner city and watching the journey of people. It's so one when you have such a gift, when you have a type of gift that people can kind of rally behind and get behind, such as being like a really good athlete, right? People will get behind, a young inner city kid that's athletic that's gonna be getting it, right? But what you're telling me is that you were not one dimensional, right? And that you had many gifts and that God, and I love the way that you said that when you were younger, those gifts
Mm-hmm.
were already starting to be on display, right? You were
Mm-hmm.
already starting to be in gifted and talented programs. You were already skipped a grade. So when you got into this new atmosphere, you may not have been able at first to talk like you belong, but you
Come
had
on. Come on.
everything in you that you needed to succeed on that level. right?
Yes.
And if we were to look at you as a one-dimensional being, we'd be like, oh yeah, his journey was to go play football because he's Richard Yeargin, right? He's another Richard. So he's gonna be another football player. He's gonna go to another HBCU. He's gonna do it just like his father and his brother did it. But God, even though you did have that, right, you have your legacy, but you have your identity as well, right? And
Mhm.
so we're carrying what was given to us from our parents, from our families, from our situations. But then there's this part of our life that God
Mhm.
leaves for us to define for ourselves, right? And you got an opportunity that nobody else in your family got, to have a different launching pad, right? You got to go across the tracks. You got to go to this rich school with these affluent people and have
Mhm.
a different start, because everything that was in you needed the opportunity to thrive.
There you go.
And so I love that you were in this, and I love that, cuz listen, we get in these type of situations where somebody tells us, I don't understand what you're saying, and immediately the black woman in me was like, excuse me, what you mean you don't understand what I'm saying, right? Like something in you rises
You
up,
want to
you
you
know
get
yeah,
offended.
yeah,
You get
you be like,
offended.
what you mean? It's English, ain't it? Right? And there's no disregard of where you came from, but there's still the realization that in the space I still need to be heard. I need to be understood, and I can't wait for them to get me. I need to get them. I can't wait for everybody to learn how to understand me and to get on my level. I need to figure out what I need to do on the scene so that I can push and make moves.
There you
And I
go.
think sometimes we get into new situations in life and we walk into a new place that has a different set of standards that may be right or wrong. I'm not here to argue that, but it's different. And we get in those spaces and we say, you have to accept me as I am, and you got to
Hmm.
make space for me. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't, but what happens when they don't? I'm not saying that they shouldn't take the time to get to know you and get to know your language and get to know how you talk and be okay with who you are. But what are we going to do when they don't? You still got to do what you have to do to get in the room and to stay in the room. And sometimes we're going to have to, as we're moving through talking about kind of our first act and some of the challenges that you were facing and some of the different elements of your story that were kind of building up to the next piece of your narrative, there is a space where you are going to have to go through some things, and you are going to have to be the person to say, okay, I'm going to figure out this landscape, because once I get real, real good at this, I'm going to come back and I'm bringing more with me. Y'all couldn't understand me, but when I get the opportunity, I'm coming back, and I'm coming back with more of us. But I
Hmm.
gotta make space while I'm at the table, and I gotta get
Yes.
to the table. And so I love how you navigated that as a young person, because a
Hmm.
lot of a lot of people would not have handled it that way.
Well, here's the thing. We think people are getting on to us when we don't conjugate our nouns and our verbs properly. When we when we don't take the time to express our fullness of our thought process, right? And we just talking off the top of the head all the time, right? And what I learned in that environment is when you're around people who come from like money and stuff like that, they joke a little different, right? It's a little bit like when you're young, right? And my people, we always had money. You free. Like I saw some stuff in private school that I never would have saw even with us, and the stuff that they can get away with versus the stuff I couldn't get away with while I was there was different, right? Like, I mean, for example, if you're the mayor's son and you want to go egging the entire um, 818 by the beach and hitting old people with eggs, you're not going to get in trouble doing it. All they're
Yeah.
going to say to you is, "Hey, man, cut that out. That's not cool, man. Call your dad."
Stop that,
But
buddy.
exactly, I'm going to call your daddy. Call him. But if I am doing it by myself with my friends from the other side and come to their side and do that, we're going to jail. Like we're going to jail. You see what I'm
But
saying? So I
yeah,
learned that too, which was what empowered me even more on the field was because I wasn't just a football player, but I learned how to be a leader first. So everything that I did was to help the team. I
Okay,
never
talk.
put me first.
Break it down.
I
Break it down.
So I was always willing to do the dirty work. So I initially started out as a safety in high school. My whole time, so from a position standpoint, a safety is the person furthest from the ball. And so for me, I was used to playing up on the ball. But what happened to me was when I first got to high school, I was underdeveloped. I was maybe about 5'10, 5'11, maybe 160 pounds soaking wet. But out of nowhere, in the middle of my ninth grade year, I had that growth spurt that you would have going into high school
Yeah.
and going into 10th grade. Now, all of a sudden, I'm 6'3", 200 pounds, and everybody looking around like, what
Where
he
you come
ate this
from?
summer? Where did he come from? Whoa. And so the value that they projected when I was younger exceeded. And so now they
Wow.
were like, whoa, he done got real smart, real big, and he's real aggressive now. So like that kid that came in a year ago, well, he walk around like a man now. He done been lifting weights and he on the program, he's serious. And so now
Wow.
I'm asking questions. I'm sitting down with the head coach. What's your goals? How many games you plan on us winning next year? Maybe one more than the last one. Okay, I'm leaving. This is where I exit because me and you were not talking the same language. So I appreciate
Wow.
the initial opportunity, but now this is business, right? And so I'm going to take my talents to the next best program, which is down the street, which is another rival program, which is a private school that has a challenging curriculum and everything. And so now everything that I've learned there, I take to this next place. And this is where I become an All American. University finds me. All this stuff starts to happen. My GPA is through the roof. I become a top 5 African American scholar athlete in the country. All these things happen. And so now everybody in the country wants me. I'm choosing between University of Florida, Notre Dame, University of Texas, Clemson, University of Michigan. And so I'm getting pulled in many different directions by all these politicians to sign with Notre Dame and do all this stuff, and they're gonna take care of my family. Was one of the best decisions of my life, but it was also one of the hardest because let's be honest, in most black families, money can be the root of all evil. I'll just be honest with you. And what
Yeah.
I started to learn was everybody could count the money faster than you can make it. And so when you're young and you
Yeah.
have a lot of potential and people are thinking pro, I'm in high
Yeah.
school. I'm not even ready for the pros yet. But when you're performing at that level, when everybody's looking at you, now you've become the center of attention. You're in the news every week, you're in the newspaper. Everybody know your business. I can't go out anywhere publicly with my girl at the time, or girl, or anybody without Peter and chatting. And so I started to understand that, like, be careful what you ask for in life, because when you get it and people know who you are, that comes with a certain level of, again, expectations that are placed on your life that maybe you didn't sign up for. But now you've worked and worked and worked from the background to have this life, live this life, be a top ranked player, all these things, have schools wanting you. Now you got to make a sound decision. And
Wow.
you only make a decision one time, right? It's
Wow.
not like it is today where guys are transferring and doing different things. Like you make a decision, you got to stand on that, all 10 toes firmly. And so, for me, I knew it wasn't going to be an HBCU no more. I knew that dream of playing for Buddy Pugh
Whoa.
passed, you know,
Yeah.
and I knew that, the reality was I was going to be playing at a big time institution. And I was thankful for that. And, all of that hard work that I did off the field, it paid off not only in the academia, but the athletic side. And it helped prepare me for my
Yeah.
opportunity, once I got to college.
Wow. One, I all American. Come on here, bro. So it's
Yeah.
it's so funny to me. It's almost as if the Lord kept elevating your profile. Like you started off, Little League football and you had the vision, right? Because again, you're Richard Yeargin III and you had your
Mm-hmm.
dad who did this and you had your brother who did this. But it's almost like the Lord kept giving you these like boosters, like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna launch you forward here. I'm gonna put you in a private school. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
give you, 4, 5 more inches. I'm gonna put a little bit more dynamic power inside of you, right? It's almost like you kept getting these boosts that kind of launched you forward. To the point where your story, I think, became more than like what you just said. It became more than what you expected it would.
Mm-hmm.
That first act was just you just kind of
Mm-hmm.
zooming forward, and you kept. And I'm sure that because again, I watch these little athletic shows and movies, okay, right, and just the amount of pressure that is on a talented young person who everybody has their hope built on. Right
Mm-hmm.
now, you succeeding is the family succeeding. Right, you going forth to the next level is all of us. This for all of us. This for the community. This for the neighborhood. This for the
Everybody.
Yeargins. This for this is for everybody. And going and being in kind of this first act of your life, and us literally seeing the weight of that pressure on you, right? Like we see the enormity of the gift, right? We see the enormity of the opportunity, but we also feel the extreme weight of the pressure that you were under as you are now about to become a college athlete on a really, really visible platform, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so you had some successful years though as a
Yeah.
college athlete,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You did
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
things
Yeah. Yeah.
happened for you, right?
Yeah.
Talk
Yeah.
to me about
Yeah.
what it was like
Yeah.
competing.
Yeah.
Now you're in a place, right? You have now gotten to the place that little Richard was at when he was looking at older Richard, right?
Mm-hmm.
When he was traveling to see, his brother's
Mm-hmm.
games with Richard
Mm-hmm.
Sr., right? Now
Mm-hmm.
you're there, right?
Right.
You're at the point where you have now exceeded everyone's expectations. You're on a
Mm-hmm.
high profile team doing
Mm-hmm.
big things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about what that was like both on and off the field.
Man, it was a lot. And I say this, pressure is a privilege that most people don't
Mm,
prioritize.
that's good.
And
Oh, what? Because wait, I didn't know you had more
pressure
to it. Pressure is a
is a
privilege.
privilege that most people don't prioritize.
That's
So
good.
they never reach their promise.
I should have known you was gonna come on here preaching. I don't even know why I thought you was just gonna get on here and talk about
Pressure is a
football.
privilege that most people, what I'm saying is everything you just talked about, it was a privilege to go through that. It was a privilege
That's
to
good.
see life in a way that most people would dream of. And it
Yeah.
not have to be about money, but it was through education. And
Yeah.
one of the things God kept showing me was the more you study, the more I'll show you approve, right? So like the more you spend time off the field trying to figure it out, I'll help you figure it out on the field. And so my
Mm,
time at university, it was challenging because I experienced the very high of college football. You win a national championship. You're a year away from signing a contract that could change you and your family's life.
yeah.
And, in the middle of that, you meet adversity. James 1, 2 through 4, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, when you face trials and tribulations of many kind, because it will produce that testing of that faith is going to produce perseverance. And on June 3rd, 2017, after all the parades and all the great ride, and we about to get this degree and we about to ride off into the sunset. Most
Yeah.
accidents happen when you're 5 miles away from the destination. Seriously, most accident when you're real close to something, that's where that pressure turns up. And for me, the pressure was on my head, literally 2,000 pounds of it. And to say life got flipped upside down and totally caught me by surprise would be an understatement, because God never says oops or my bad,
Yeah.
right? And so I'm never going to shame the devil and not glorify God, right?
Yeah.
Like
That's
what
good.
happened was a shifting of an assignment. What happened was a shifting of a calling. What happened was, why me? no, why not me? And so
Yeah.
what I had to realize was I was in God's waiting room. As I sat, I woke up in the hospital after having overcome, a terrible one person automobile accident where I hydroplane and I wake up screaming Jesus' name, right? Because I saw the white clouds of heaven for a split moment as I remember flipping and I go, oh, and I'm looking and I'm waking up in the hospital and I'm talking to a doctor.
Wow.
And he's telling me, you should be dead or paralyzed for life. And you're neither.
And you're neither.
Congratulations. Right? You're
My.
neither. Congratulations. You're going to walk again at some point. You're going to play football, but it'll be a long time. You're going to hate your life, though, for the next 6 months because you're going to be on bed rest. And that was my verdict in God's waiting room. And I said,
And
you
it
know
was a
what?
head injury.
It was a head injury and it was a neck.
Jesus.
Essentially, from levels C5 through C6 or C5 through C7 are fused. So they went in through the front, got to the back, opened me up, and fused the 3 levels together or the 2 levels together. So, yeah,
An
it's real.
attack on your head. First of all, you just dropped so many gems. All like and you took us fast. But that most accidents happen 5 miles within your destination.
Destination. Yeah. Yeah. When you're
That's
real close, that's when most accidents.
when you're real close. When you're real close, guys, when you're real close, that's when something is coming for you and it's coming to take off your head. Right? And I'm so grateful. One, I'm grateful that the enemy didn't get any victory that day because for you to have gone through that accident and to wake up and the doctor tell you that you are either supposed to be dead or paralyzed, but you're neither, right? I'm sure in that moment you felt both the blessing and again the pressure and the weight of that, right? Like there's still a life, right? We had a whole vision. We had contracts on the line. We were about to go to the next level, right? We had an idea of what the second act was going to look like, right? All right, Lord, the first act I fulfilled that. I made it to the college football team at a top tier institution, won national championship. I'm out here and I'm about to go to the level that I know God wanted me to go to next, which is to sign contracts to continue to play professional. But what ah Rich, I think it's so interesting to me because we talked earlier about how when I look through your life journey, I see where God sent these boosts where you were just launching forward and launching forward and launching forward. And the accident to anybody else would have looked like a setback, but it actually was another
Setup.
boost.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like a setback, but it was actually a setup. See, I love having y'all. Let me tell y'all something. One of the first days I met Richard, we were in class together, and this man, everybody else pulling out their laptops, their notebooks. We get ready to take notes. I look at Richard's desk. I'm like, is that a Bible and a prayer shawl? Oh, he took out his Bible and his prayer shawl and had it on the desk. And I said, hey, Rich, you got the word on you. He said, oh yeah, I always keep that thing on me. And ever since then, I said, this is about to be my brother. Because anybody who pop out with a Bible and a prayer shawl to our what
Oh,
class was
glory be to
that?
God.
Probably our
That was the
qualitative
first
research
one.
methods
Call
class
it
or something.
the qual research.
Yeah, the qualities. I was like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
I see you.
yeah,
I see
yeah,
you.
yeah,
Now with
yeah,
this guy right here.
yeah.
But anybody else would have saw a setback. Anybody else would have said he lost everything. He lost everything. Right. And I love the other thing that you said that I will be stealing. You said that you were in God's waiting room.
Yes.
Intermission, baby. That's what an intermission is. You get to a point Where in the first act we had the vision, we had the playbook, if you will, right? We knew, all right, I'm gonna go to this level, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna rock it out in the classroom, I'm gonna rock it out on
Mm-hmm.
the field. I'm gonna enjoy my 4 years so I can get to the next level of this thing. You had the
Mm-hmm.
playbook, but then God pulled you into an intermission. He pulled you into a waiting room and said, hold on, because you're about to make your life into something. And a lot of people would maybe sit and talk about what you missed out on, but you don't know who you missed becoming, that would have changed not just the trajectory of what you did for your family, but it might have introduced you to some things that you would not have been able to turn away from,
That's deep.
because you are the guy that's supposed to stay on the porch.
See that
You
that
got to stay on the porch
that's deep. That's
because,
deep. That's deep.
yeah.
That's deep.
And all through your life, and I'm sure you could tell us all the notes about, the times you went off the porch, about the times you did some things that seemed like they were completely contradictory to who God was calling you to be, right? I,
Mm-hmm.
I know you have those stories, but everywhere you look, God still had his hand of protection, and he had his hedge around you, that even in those times where you went out of the yard, right? But you had this grandmother who set a pattern for your life that the enemy could not break. She set the pattern that this is a porch kid. This
Mm-hmm.
is a kid that's going to stay close to the house because of what's inside of him. He can only be exposed to so much. He can only get involved in so much because the call on his life is greater than the call that maybe he had seen, than the legacy that he had adopted. There's something else to him. There's something more to him. And you had to grab other pieces of your identity to get to it. So
Mm-hmm.
you're in a hospital. The enemy tried to take off your head, completely failed, right? Well, how are you processing that moment?
Honestly, I was so confused because again, I was just talking about all my plans and graduation and moving forward and my legacy beyond university. And I wasn't focused on the moment, right? Because I couldn't grasp all of that was kind of in question, right? And so my mindset is I'm so used to acceleration going forward. My position is to take on a blocker head first, right? Like everything is a head first
Yeah,
mentality for me,
yeah,
right? And for once, I had to let God lead head first. It wasn't about me being physical, it was about me getting mentally stronger to be able to sustain for when I'm now 30 years old trying to pursue a PhD and raise a family and be sane, right?
my Lord.
Just being honest, because a lot of folks that go on to play professionally in sports, when they retire, they don't transition well financially,
Yeah,
faith wise. A lot of things take root in their life. And I had a chance to experience that early without all the money, without all of the things, right? And so God really had me in a place of submission where I had to come to Him for every little thing. God, can I get up and can I go to the bathroom without
wow,
feeling pain? God, can I get in the car and turn my head and eventually be able to drive
wow,
without, you know what I'm saying? I had to depend on him. My wife now, girlfriend then, need a shower. Can you help me do that? You know what I'm saying? Like,
wow,
pick me up out the bed, a big 6'4", 270-pound man out of his bed to get in the shower, to get his
wow,
day going, so that I can go to treatment and so life in and itself, I'm so used to go, go, go. It was whoa, 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 slow down, big fella. You know what I mean? And
wow.
I like,
Yeah.
no, that's hard to slow me down and tell me sit still. And
You
so
you can
I'm
see my
like,
brother is doing this interview standing up, right?
yeah,
Like
and my
that's
standing
how much
desk.
he don't like being still. Okay, he was like, I might have to do some demonstrations. I don't know what I'm
Right.
gonna have to do.
I don't know. I don't know. But I was confined to the bed. And
Wow.
that's the hardest place to be while hallucinating, right? About what should have been.
Wow.
right? And then writing about where you are and where you want to go and not knowing how you're going to get there.
Wow. While you were in God's waiting room, right? There's still the vision. Like you and I think that's what is so important to understand about the intermission seasons of our life. You have not lost the vision of what was.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
can still clearly see what you were hoping and expecting for in a past season,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you don't yet see what's ahead,
You don't. You
right?
can't see it.
You can't see it, but I'm wondering, Rich, how do you transition? How do you make the turn to say, okay, I have grieved what I lost and I'm now ready to endeavor into what God has for me next? How do you make that turn?
3-step process that I used. And it's not TLC, but it's TDC. And TDC, time, distance, and covering. Um,
Wow.
you know, it's one thing to give your life to the Lord when you're a young man. After my grandmother passed in the third grade, we all, Lord, the Spirit hit you.
The first
You see it,
iteration,
yeah.
yeah.
You see everybody getting communion, and then what happens to you is you don't want to be like not like the rest of the other Sunday school kids and not like know Jesus. You know what I mean? Because when they call on you and ask you who knows him, then they tell you to recite the 23rd Psalm and you don't know it and you feel bad. And so you start feeling convicted early, which is a good thing. But then that teaching and what keeps you and sustains you over the course of time is having a real relationship with Christ. Right. And
Yeah.
that's where that piece kicked in. For the first time, I wasn't giving God my plans and saying, here go my plans, approve them. I was finally saying, hey, like, I actually work for you. You don't work for me. Because
Wow.
the thing was, I got so transactional with God. Like, okay, I do this, I do that. Then you give me this, you give me that. And for this time, you didn't give me this, so I didn't get that. And so then I started having conversations with him like, hey, yo, my man, like, you left me. He's like, no, 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 I didn't leave you. I told you to wait.
I'm sorry.
I mean,
I felt that in my Shana. Nah,
I told
I
you to
didn't
wait.
leave you. I told you to wait.
Told you to wait. I told you, John 13:7. I'm watching you right now.
Wow.
I just got done watching you. Just chill. I'm trying to show you something.
Wow.
You don't understand it now, but you'll understand it later once I'm finished with you. And
Ooh.
it's like when a man leaves you in that position, you don't understand what I'm doing now, but you'll understand later. It's like, what do you mean? Like, why? What's going on? Like, I'm confused. Like, I've been running my whole life, and now you got me sitting up here getting a pedicure and a manicure in the waiting room. I don't do that. You know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
ain't got time for that. Like, but God, like, no, no, no. You have time for what I tell you. You now have time for. That's it. Like that. There's no
Yeah,
debating with
because
him.
the vision of what was, right? Like I'm sure that like the opportunities that were presenting themselves
Mm-hmm.
before the incident, they're no longer there. I'm sure people are sending regrets now,
Mm-hmm.
right? But
Mm-hmm.
God is saying, sit still, son. Sit still. I got you. I
Mm-hmm.
love I'm washing you,
Mm-hmm.
right?
I'm
Because
watching you.
I think what we don't give God the opportunity to do, which is exactly what you have to do. Oh Lord, I'm sorry. I'm getting some answers for my own life right now. If I just go off in a moment and just,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
what we don't do in between the first act and the second act is we don't take that time in the intermission to allow God to wash us of that old vision, of that old understanding of ourselves, of that old hope. Because maybe what we had written for ourselves was not the plan that he had all along. And at the time, Rich is still young, Rich is a whole, you don't get fooled, he done lived 5 million lives.
Right.
Okay. But Rich is a youngin', okay. He's one of my young friends. Um, but at the time, we don't think about, having to grieve that version of ourselves. But you have to take a moment and let it go. And that's a process. And that's what makes the intermission so significant.
And, you know,
It's
I
the
think,
washing.
I think, I think the thing is in the intermission, when Jesus sat his disciples down and he did to them what they thought
Hold
they
on.
should have been doing for him, that confused them. It's like he
Wow.
loved me before I loved him. And so he washed my feet when I was dirty and helped make me clean, but I didn't peep because I'm thinking it's just about the feet, but it's about the spirit behind the act
Wow.
of
Wow.
sacrificing the time for Christ to say, listen, got a plan.
Yeah.
It's not what you think, but I got a plan. And
Yeah.
now at 30, right, or going on 30, I could
Hmm.
see what I couldn't see at 20. 10 years
Wow.
ago, I was confused. 10
Wow.
years later, I have clarity.
Wow. It's been 10 years?
That's 10 years. That's a decade of battling with my identity. A decade
Wow.
of becoming.
Wow.
That's what we're
Of
talking
becoming.
about. The whole 10
Wow.
years of becoming. Spent the whole 10 years.
Rich, that is so stinking good. Okay. So we're in this intermission season.
Mm-hmm.
And you had this old vision that had these guardrails on it where God had done so much, and I think that's the
Mm-hmm.
other thing. I really want to encourage people because a lot of times when we look at the first act of our lives, the way you tell the story matters,
Mm-hmm.
right? The way you explain to people your beginning and your starting place, it matters, right? And so a lot of times we tell the starting place and we tell it from a state of, yeah, here's what I almost was this and I almost was that and I almost had this but you had so much. Your
Mm-hmm.
first act was so rich and God, like I said, kept giving you these boosts and I go back to when you said the that pressure was a privilege, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything that you gained in that first act is going to be so critical for where you are now as a person that reaches back to people who are now in their first act, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm wondering as you are in that season, because when we talk about washing, God is not washing away the lessons that you learned. He's not washing away what he's built inside of you. He's washing all of the things that got added on top of his vision for your life so that he can
Mm-hmm.
get you back to his original intent.
Yes.
How did you, because now, Rich is out here. We 3 years into a PhD program. You know what I'm saying? We about to be doctors in a year.
Yeah. And then,
Okay.
yeah.
Catch us May 2027. Me
7.
and my brother
Live
gonna
at Little
be
John. Little John.
live and let me tell you something. Live and in live and in full effect, baby. Okay, because I'm so ready to be done with a PhD. Okay. All my PhD friends, if you in the struggle with us, man, send us some encouragement. Let's encourage each other in the Lord. Because when I tell you this last little step I'm like, let's just do this.
Mm.
Let's do this
Mm.
and get it done in Jesus' name. But
Jesus.
talk to me about what I'm understanding your first act. I think I have a picture of your intermission and kind of how you felt during there. And if you'd like to talk more about the intermission season, I'm more
Yeah.
than happy to.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about the intermission. How did we transition through that and out of it?
So I became a father, right? I think in the midst of all of that, the hardest thing you can do in college is become a parent out of
Mm,
wedlock.
yeah,
And I think the challenge for me was I was in grad school. I was coaching at the time because I wasn't quite sure what my future was going to look like. Coach extended grace for me to be able to be on staff as a student coach and still work on getting my master's in AL. So
that's
what God
amazing.
was doing in
Athletic
intermission,
leadership.
see, what God was doing in
Yeah,
the
AL.
intermission was preparing me to be a professor. I didn't see it then.
Wow.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
because I'm coaching, I'm a father now, I'm trying to figure out how do I get married, I'm trying to figure out school, and then all of a sudden I have this surgery, I recover, and now I'm playing again. And so I'm back, I'm at Boston College, and that's where the comeback comes into effect. So now I'm a grown man. I've applied for my 6 year of eligibility. That year of always being ahead pays off because during those 2 years away from football, right after my sophomore season at university, I take 2 years to get my master's, build a family, work on me. And so when I step back on the field, I'm giving them hell, right? And coach supporting it because I handle my business here as a man at university and as a player. And so he extended that grace for me to play again and go somewhere else to do so because he's got to run a business. And so at the end of the day, I had an opportunity somewhere else, and I took that opportunity, became second player in history at Boston College to win the Brian Piccolo Comeback Player Award, given
What?
to ACC's most courageous player for that physical year, and was awarded several other awards and featured on the Jim Rome Show, featured on ESPN for the story in itself, right? Which is all great, and I praise God for it because again, I tell you, no lie, it was no money attached. It was all God's glory. Like this was
Yeah.
all God getting glory. It wasn't about me getting paid because at the time college athletes weren't getting paid or anything like that. So
Well, no NIL contract.
I'm doing all of this from the heart, off the muscle, off of who was birthed October 14th, 1996 at 3820 Northwest 27th Street, which is a two, now extended to a 3 bedroom home, right? That I
What?
grew up in, right? So that kid said, I'm going to get myself together and I'm going to go finish what Lil Yerg started. That's
Wow.
his football career, right? And so I did that to prove to my son Elijah now, we finish what we start. Whatever we said we
Wow.
started, we're going to finish it.
You
However that may
closed out the
look,
vision.
I
Wow.
had to close it out, right? I couldn't leave the intermission for grabs because what God had me doing was waiting for 2 years because he was setting my life up for once I got done playing that I had something to come back to here at university.
Wow.
That was
So,
the intermission.
first of all, I ain't know that playing no 6 year. I
Yeah.
didn't know that. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Oh, so you finished the vision. That see, y'all gonna have me out here. Now don't worry about what my next summer gonna be about. All right. You might be some notes. You might hear some of your notes in there. But I love that. I love that you went and finished the vision so that God could start the next one.
Mm-hmm.
And because it was
Mm-hmm.
in you to do. That's part
Mm-hmm.
you had to close out that part of the legacy so that God
Mm-hmm.
could give you your own.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
deep. That's deep. That's deep. All right,
Yep.
talk to me about second act, bro. Talk to me about second act. Right.
Man,
What happened after that? After that final year playing?
life. And when I say life, I mean life. You know, when you move back home to Fort Lauderdale, 3820 Northwest 27th Street, to that 3 bedroom home that you came out of with your family, you're going to have some problems and you're not married. I'm just calling it what it is, right?
Yeah.
And so, as I'm training for the NFL, the pressure, all these things have come back into my life now because I've invited it,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
You sign in with an agent, your agent's telling you one thing, you're training, doing all these things, and then COVID hits. So COVID presented an unusual situation because I was no longer able to go and visit with pro teams. So the pro teams that I had met with prior to COVID that had said they would possibly bring me in or whatever after the draft, right, for a workout or what have you, were not able to bring in rookies. They were only bringing in proven veterans at the time. So a lot
Wow.
of rookies in the class didn't get signed. And so my agent was like, you want to go to the CFL? I'm like, dude, how much do they make? He was like, 50, 60 grand in 6 months. I was like, I can go get a job in sales and make that. And I can go back to the hood and do something else. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna go do
Yeah.
that. Like, so I started really looking at life like, you know, in order to continue to do this thing called football, I was gonna have to give up my family. I was gonna have to give up my faith and pursue something, not knowing what the outcome was gonna be. Or I can go ahead and deal with real life in the face, get me a job. I started coaching and teaching. Taught sixth grade science back at my old high school where I was the man. And that was interesting. I coached high school football. We won a state championship. It was a humbling experience. I'm
Okay.
making $12,000 a year soaking wet.
Wow.
I'm lucky, working 40 to 80 hours a week,
Wow.
raising a family, living back in that 3 bedroom with my parents, and
Mm.
trying to figure it out, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, you go from this ride back down to reality.
Yeah.
And that second act, I've got my degree from university. I've got my second degree. I've started on a third degree at Boston College, which is another master's degree in healthcare administration, which I didn't finish because at the time I only spent a year at Boston. I didn't spend multiple years. I just went there for my
Yeah.
last year of eligibility.
Yeah.
Um, and so for me, all this education, all these experiences, where's the money? I'm just gonna call it what it is. I'm like, God, you said you wouldn't leave your child begging for bread. Well, I'm over here in the unemployment
I'm
line.
begging.
I'm down here in Fort Lauderdale with these people that I grew up with, and I'm looking around like, what's going on? Like, I'm in the unemployment line. Like, for real.
Yeah.
I was just training for the NFL, doing all this stuff. And now I'm in the unemployment.
Wow.
Yeah. So I say all that to say, don't feel sorry for a man that has education because you could be an educated fool. And so I knew
Wow.
that my foolish ways had to be cut out, because at a certain point you got to put away childish things, right, as a man,
Yeah.
right? And you got to seek the full glory of God. And so I wasn't in that space at that time. I was still trying to find myself, right, as a man. And I made some very poor mistakes and choices with my words and with my actions. And that led to, me having to rekindle and rebuild my family.
Wow.
That as a man, thinketh in his heart, so is he. And I saw myself as a little lion. I didn't see myself as the big lion. I saw myself as Simba, right? And I was in the shadow of Little Richard around all the other Richards. Now, you
Yeah.
see what I'm saying?
You
So
you
that
you were
big
back there.
lion,
Yeah.
I was back little Yerd. And what that does to a man is it puts him in a place of fight or flight, right? And so I knew my back was up against the wall. If I wanted to, grow my family, I got to grow my income. I got to figure something out. I got
Yeah.
to put together a plan because this is real life. This isn't football no more where, you thinking you're going to get this or they promising you that. Like people want their money on time. Like,
Yeah.
and it's pretty serious, right? And if you don't have enough money to pay a bill or the bills, you're going to be stuck looking at Chuck, right? You're gonna be stuck like
Yeah.
Chuck, right? And so I know what it's like to be short. I know what it's like to, man, just be hungry, right? And be
Yeah.
looking for an opportunity, right, to serve or to do anything, right?
Yeah.
And when you're in that space, sometimes you run across the wrong people that offer you some of the wrong opportunities, and you gotta know how to use your discernment. That kid from the porch or that kid off the porch, the kid from the porch or the kid off the porch. What do I do? I'm in the real world, like there's no excuses. It's over, right? Like
Yeah.
the hardest thing is when your homies tell you, "Hey, man, we're proud of the run you was on. You the guy, but you here with us now. What you finna do?" And you got to be like, "Man, I'm gonna go coach these kids. I'm gonna go do something positive today. Because if I don't, I'm gonna be on that, and I'm really not trying to be on
Yeah.
that." You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I'll say God had me in a place where I had to be humble and wait again. After the ride after everything was said and done, I was so thankful the day I got a call from university. Right after I decided to get saved for real, August of 2021.
What?
Yep, gave my life back to Christ and says, you know what? The missing piece of this puzzle and why things are not happening for me is because I haven't given it back over to Him. And the moment I did that, I found myself back with my wife. I found myself in a nice starter home. I found myself with more than enough money to pay our bills. I found
Wow.
myself, you know, in just a space. And then university calls. It offers me the opportunity to come back here and get my PhD and to teach in the athletic
Wow.
leadership program. And I would say from there, man, my life changed, in an instant. I was thinking one way, but again, God has something completely different set aside. And so, just super grateful for the journey,
Yeah.
and just for God keeping His hand on me, even in that time of confusion,
Yeah.
and in that time where you just really don't know what you don't know. You're young. Your brain as a man doesn't fully develop until you're 26, and so to have gone through all that trauma so early in my life, I'm thankful for it.
Yeah.
I appreciate the pressure.
Yeah. Ooh. Ooh. Back to the pressure. I love that you had an opportunity, you had to close out a seat. You had to close out the vision, right? And you did that externally where you went and you played that next football season. But
Mm-hmm.
then you also had to close it out internally where
Mm-hmm.
you were able to tell yourself, okay, you know what? This is it. This is I'm not gonna try to keep trying to revamp this old vision. I'm going to allow God to redefine who I am so that He can rewrite my story. So, one of the things that's really important to both me and Rich is this idea of mentorship, right? This idea of taking things that we've learned through our journeys, ways that we've grown through our journeys, and investing it back. Rich, as you've kind of just talked through, your years of being on the porch, of being introduced into new seasons and new places and having to seek to understand before being fully understood and going into these places where there were different levels, how has that informed how you give back to young people?
Well, it's all about intentionality with young people. You can't start something and don't finish it. And so what I realized is that mentorship is till death do us apart. It's really not till graduation do us apart. And so just like I'm gonna be with my son, that's how I treat mentorship. Just how I'm gonna be with my daughter, that's how I treat mentorship. It's like a lifelong commitment. You know what I'm saying? And you don't play with that responsibility of someone entrusting you for wisdom because that's where counseling and all of those things come from wise men. Like there was a bunch of wise men that poured into me. So why would I not give that same level of pouring um, back to the next generation? And so I think uh, when you're dealing with mentorship, it's not a feel good thing. It's not always easy to mentor. It's not convenient to mentor. It's an intentional of kindness, right?
Yeah.
There's no glory in it. You don't get
Mm,
paid from it. It's
what you said.
from the heart. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just what it is, right? And so I think we always have to be in that posture of, am I giving or receiving? Am I a borrower? Am I a lender? Right? And I think we've been on so much time. Why can't we lend a little bit? You know,
Oh, yeah. No,
I know I'm
that's
on borrowed
amazing.
time. I know I'm on borrowed time. So why
Listen,
not lend?
listen. Rich, listen. One, your story is absolutely amazing. Even the parts I didn't know, right? I thought I had seen it all. I've heard this man speak on multiple platforms. I've watched him tell this story. It's such an inspiring story. It's such a story that people love to grab onto because it gives hope to. It's a intergenerational inspirational story. It speaks to so many people at different levels of their life. And I'm grateful that you would consider coming on the UnLearnT podcast to the second act to
Come on,
tell it because
come on.
truly God has done so many amazing things for you. Rich, if the people want to connect with you and to
Mm-hmm.
learn more about what you do. Listen, my brother's still a hustler.
Come on now.
Okay. He always got an idea, always got a new venture, always got a new little thing he doing. How can the people keep up with what you're doing?
It's simple. You can find me on my website, richardmorgan.com, or you can shoot me a direct email to my foundation. We're transitioning this year from just a straightforward back into a little mixture of dealing with the nonprofit model and split ministry. You'll see me, you catch me at church, throughout the week. Obviously, as we know, my place of employment and where I'm at and what I'm doing. But, I appreciate those that do visit my website. It's going to be under construction over the next month or so. But, feel free to reach out with any requests through that channel or on social media. You can find me
What's the social?
Professor Yuri,
Perfect.
Instagram, Twitter, anything like that. I do a little Facebook as well, so you can personalize names.
Perfect.
I try to be connected, with people.
Listen, Rich, thank you so much.
Thank you all
I
for
really
having me.
appreciate you, bro.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, this was
yeah.
amazing. All right, friends, if you have not yet signed up with us, please like, share, subscribe. We want you to be a part of this family. We want you to continue to learn more. As we continue to unlearn, we want you to join us on this journey of unlearning. And as we are thinking through what God is doing for us in our second act, I want you to always remember you don't have to stay stuck in intermission. You can raise the curtain to your second act. We'll see you guys on the next one. Peace, y'all.